Good morning. I'm Scott Lee. I'm kind of going to be running the slideshow and presentations and trying to keep everything organized and on track. For those of you who just joined us, we're going to give it a couple of minutes to go ahead and have the other attendees start to jump in. So just stand by. I'll probably start just a couple of minutes after 9. Thanks. So we're going to just give it a couple more minutes to have a couple of other folks join us, and we'll go ahead and get started in just a minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's a couple of minutes after 9. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Scott Lee with Terrago. If you're unfamiliar, we're located down in Atlanta, Georgia. The engineering folks and some of our back office people are here in Atlanta. Corporate headquarters is up in Sterling, Virginia. Thanks. I believe this is the 17th working group that we've been able to put on for you. The intent of this is to kind of let you understand where some of the players in the geospatial PDF space are with their technology, what they're doing, not just maybe specifically to creating GeoPDFs or geospatial PDFs, but some of the technology that may be able to help you in moving your operations forward, trying to help you share technology either from a remotely sensed data package or a vector data package using ArcGIS, ArcGIS Pro. We're happy to have BAE Systems here with us today to talk about their technology ecosystem and platform. So thanks, Brian and the BAE team. Well, unfortunately, because there was a lot of shuffling around for the dates for this and the looming government shutdown, obviously we had to move some things around. We were trying to do it on site at USGS, where we traditionally have done this. But again, because of the government shutdown, we made the tough decision to go ahead and have this virtual again this year. That being said, Ray Caputo, who normally organizes everything, had some extenuating circumstances and wasn't really able to take the bull by the horns this time. So he asked the partners to help pull this together. Again, so I'm Scott with Terrago. I'm joined by Brian Roberts. Ted Florence should be in here in a few minutes to give his presentation on what Avenza Systems is up to. We're going to take a quick break, and then Patrick Graves, who has been a part of this group and a part of this industry for 17, 18, 20 years, will give a brief overview of North Avenue and what they have been up to. Then we'll follow that with just a quick Q&A session. We were going to have USGS present on their 3D efforts, but that is because of the coordination and some of the communication. We weren't able to secure them, but I'm sure they'll be happy to present during next year's event as well. We traditionally do technology presentations, and then the following year we'll do customer presentations. So if you're interested in talking about what you're doing with your organization in this space, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. There'll be plenty of contact information that'll be scattered on slides, I'm sure. But with that, I do believe that the event today will be a streamlined event, if you will, because we had one of the speakers unable to present, and that's completely my fault, unfortunately. But for that, I do apologize. So, with that, we do have a handful of attendees and a handful of panelists. What I wanted to do was go ahead and do just a quick introduction of the agenda here that is on your screen. I hope everyone can see that. Patrick, can you see the agenda there on my screen?
I can.
Okay, perfect. And audio check from everybody. We're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share real quick and ask Brian to go ahead and start his presentation. On the bottom, there is a Q&A button. Everyone has been muted by the system, but if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, I will make an attempt to monitor the Q&A session as we go through the presentation, and that way the presenters can just go ahead and continue as they go on, and then field the questions afterward. We do want to make this as interactive as possible, but with so many people on the line, it's kind of hard to do that. So please utilize the Q&A section down at the bottom of the Zoom meeting, if you will. And with that, I'm going to go on mute and ask Brian to go ahead and kick us off.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Got you loud and clear, man. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Scott, thank you. And thank you for the invite to allow us to present here in the working group. I think this is the first time I'm attending it. But we've been, I guess, partners and working with you all for quite a while now. I think I kind of looked it up. I think it was Socket GXP, like 4.0 or something, almost 11 years ago, which was the first piece of our software that we incorporated the GeoPDF production capability in there. So it's been quite a while here that we've been working with you all. So I just want to kind of give a brief overview of where we're coming from if people aren't familiar with our products. GXP, it stands for Geospatial Exploitation Products. And here on this slide, I'm showing like kind of what our vision is and our strategic themes over this. And really, we started purely as a GeoInt product line. And we've been slowly over the years expanding more into all source, FMV, that kind of stuff. But really trying to bring it all together into a multi-int platform. Okay, where I see GeoPDFs and 3D GeoPDFs and stuff playing in here with our visions and stuff is up here in our upper left, where we're delivering customer-driven solutions and workflows. I mean, we first got involved with TerraGo and creating these because our customers asked us, hey, there's this new thing coming out, it's called a GeoPDF. We need to build these products so we can deploy them into the field and stuff. And so we really do take a lot of our customer feedback to drive our software development. And that was one of the key areas. And like I said, now as we move on, if we look in the lower right, we're trying to be the GeoInt, it said hub, or as the slide says, the nexus for your multi-int and your all source type analyst. And we look at these GeoPDFs and 3D GeoPDFs as kind of lowering that barrier to the all source analyst. You're able to provide them with some GeoInt capability and GeoInt products and stuff, even when they don't have necessarily the electronic light tables and the specific software in there. This big brain looking thing in the middle kind of represents what we call our ecosystem, which is our whole suite of products, which I'll talk briefly about here on this next slide. Hey, the hub of our ecosystem is something called the GXP platform, as you can see in the middle, and it's really composed of 5 different, I hesitate to say software packages, because with the exception of tasks right in the middle, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, the other 4 really are just alternative or alternate user interfaces into the same underlying backend piece of software. They're just optimized for particular workflows and for different types of analysts. So our GXP Explorer module is about data discovery and understanding where all of your data is and allowing analysts to access that data, even if it's not co-located with them. If it's remote, you'll see in a little bit. InMotion is all about FMV products. Fusion, which is our newest product in this line, is that all source product. That's where your all source analyst is coming in and they're looking at GeoInt, they're looking at documents, they're looking at other sources of data and being able to fuse all of that together. And then GXP Ops View is something for the first responder market in there. I already mentioned, I think, the first part of the integration where we started putting the TerraGo technologies into our products was in Socket GXP, which is our desktop application. That's a thick desktop client, kind of electronic light table. Still, it's our kind of our flagship product for geospatial exploitation. We have more recently incorporated it into GXP WebView, which is a lightweight ELT that runs in a web browser. I will demonstrate both of these software packages here in a little bit. This really is, again, it is an image exploitation tool, but it's designed around the all source analyst who doesn't need all of that capability that is in something like Socket GXP. Few other places where the TerraGo stuff has been incorporated. You'll see GXP Explorer, which I said is our data discovery tool. We can catalog and read the GeoPDFs, plot them on the maps and stuff to help analysts discover the products already generated. Over here, I'm not really going to talk much about it, is our GXP OnScene, which is a mobile application that connects to GXP Ops View. But that is a consumer of GeoPDFs. We can push GeoPDFs onto that mobile device. And through the OnScene application, people with their cell phone, it will plot their position on top of that GeoPDF. So with all of that, that's just kind of my brief intro for our ecosystem. And I'm going to switch from slides now to actual live kind of demo. Oops, that's my slides. Here we go. So this is the opening page of our, as you see, our GXP platform, which allows you to access these different user interfaces depending on, like I said, what your particular workflow and your need is. I'm going to start by going into GXP Explorer, and it remembered where I was in the past. And like I said, what Explorer allows us to do is just point it to data, and it catalogs it in place. So it doesn't move the data. You can point it to multiple locations. It just catalogs it and gives it a real easy and slick user interface for the customer. So we're talking, I want to see some GeoPDFs that have been opened or saved into my system here. So I'm just going to tell it, instead of searching everything, just search for documents, and I can hit search here and you can see this little pop up. I've got one little product here. This was a GeoPDF I made the other day. So you can see, unfortunately, we don't get kind of good actual thumbnails of these. It's just kind of a generic little PDF thumbnail that's in there, but I can get some basic information about it here, and then I can launch it directly into Adobe. Now it defaults to going into the web browser. So you can't really see right here much of like the toolbars or anything like that. Although it's, hmm. So I'm going to go and pop this down, but that gives you kind of a quick down and dirty kind of, you can preview it to see it. If it's something there you want, you can put it into your shopping cart. You can just simply download it, which you can do there. And it's already opened up. And now I can open it actually. So again, it's opening it up into a web browser, but this time it's activating or the plugin. I'm going to go ahead and pop it so we can actually see it here in Adobe. And you can see I got the toolbars and stuff down at the bottom. This is something we call a grid reference graphic, right? Which is kind of like the battleship view. This was something a lot of our troops used over in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they could call out locations, saying I'm in grid 3C. They could talk to that over open comms, and unless you actually had this GeoPDF, you would have no idea what grid 3C was, or 2E or whatever. So it really streamlined their communications, and they would create new products every single day where they would just reposition the grid over it. So what was 3C today might be a different number or something tomorrow, to kind of keep the enemy guessing and stuff. The image you see back around here is actually obviously not an overhead image. This is a terrain shaded relief made from a high resolution terrain model, created from several hundred images actually. So we can generate these GeoPDFs without even having necessarily ortho imagery or things like that. I can create imagery from terrain models, things like that, and still make a useful product. So I'm going to that, and we're going to hop back over to Explorer, and I'll show you how we can generate and create the PDFs, GeoPDFs here. So I'm going to switch my search. I'm going to turn it off and actually go back and search just for imagery over the same kind of area. You can see I have a bunch of images there, but the product I'm going to generate is, again, out of that same where we just saw my GeoPDF with the made from the terrain model. I'm going to make a similar product here in using Socket GXP WebView, but over using an actual image rather than the terrain model. So when I select the image in it here, again, I get a nice thumbnail of the image. I can see the area. Down here is all of the different tools or things I could use with, I can send that image to use it. So I'm going to click on this one, which just says view image, which actually opens it into that lightweight ELT that I talked about called GXP WebView. So we can see the image here. We do have a variety of different tools and whatnot. So an analyst can do some basic annotations and measurements. So let's say I want to know how big this building is. Okay, I can make that. And I'm going to just generate a fairly quick product. I can throw some grid lines on here, so showing my locations, and then apply a template. In GXP WebView, to make it easy to generate templates, we actually just use PowerPoint slides that you can import. You can import a single PowerPoint slide presentation with a whole bunch of different slides on it, different templates on each one, and they'll all appear here. I'm just going to click this one, which only has one slide template in there. You can see I added that template. One of the things about some of our templates is they can pull information from the system. They can pull information from the platform's database. So things like the date was pre-populated. The classification is populated, image name, and so on. This in here in WebView, unfortunately, it didn't auto pull that map. I had to include the map of England in the template. I will show you when we go to Socket GXP that you don't have to do that. We can actually query the metadata within the image to pull the proper map. But like I said, WebView is a little less capable than our Socket GXP product is. So once we get our product looking right, we can hit this publish button, and that brings up this little menu over here, which allows us, to select different types of products to generate. And you'll notice that there's 2 GeoPDF buttons in here. And remember that this is a web-based application, so the server that I'm connecting to may or may not actually even be within my organization. So I have 2 choices. I can generate a GeoPDF for download, or I can hit this share button, which is going to generate the GeoPDF, but then automatically just push it right back into Explorer. So, but first I'm just going to hit the download, which there we go. It took it a few seconds to generate, and I got this in here. I'm going to pop it open. And again, you can see it here. The one limitation within the web view is that it burns everything into the single layer. So even if I open this in the desktop system, if I come over here, I get one single layer. Again, if you need something where we break it out into layers, then you need to go to a Socket GXP, which I'll show you here in a little bit. That's generating a GeoPDF in WebView. We don't have the ability to do 3D GeoPDFs in WebView yet. That is incorporated into Socket GXP. Like I said, I could alternately have hit this button down here. It would have generated the GeoPDF. Instead of downloading it, it's generated on the server. It would be incorporated right into Explorer. I would go back to my map. I could find it and make that available to anybody who can connect to that server. So I'm going to hop back over to our map view now and come back to that same image, and I'll show you kind of the same process and some of the differences in Socket GXP. And so instead of the first time I hit this button, which opened it in WebView, open the same image here in Socket GXP. And we get the little pop-up that says it's opening. And here it is. So you can see it's the same image that I was looking at. If you notice when I zoomed, it kind of like went to a checkerboard for a little bit. I'll see if I can force it again. Okay, to do that. That's because I am not actually downloading the image to my workstation. I'm streaming it straight from the server. So again, I can access imagery and build these products locally, even though the raw data, the image I'm using, might be 1,000 miles away or more than that. Instead of having to force me to download this fairly large file, it's just streaming in the pixels that I need to display. One thing that separates us apart from a lot of the other groups is that not only do we stream the pixels, but we stream the metadata. So I can do everything in my Socket GXP application on this image that's not even on the same system that I'm on, but treat it basically as if it was a local image on here. So again, I can, if you're not familiar, Socket GXP is our desktop client. This is our more advanced electronic light table. It can do a lot of different things, generate a lot of different types of products. We can take stereo imagery and produce terrain models, do some 3D feature extraction to populate into databases, and incorporate all of that kind of data into some final products here. So I'm going to kind of more or less do a very similar product that I had just generated in WebView. I'll do it here in Socket GXP. Again, I can make some annotations, put things in here. I'll just draw some dots, right, just to represent graphics. Who knows what they are? If I go over here to my products tab, again, I have templates that are pre-built. Now, these are actually Socket GXP formatted templates, but we can import PowerPoint templates into here and convert them so that you can make the same exact product off of in Socket GXP that you could in WebView. Now, I selected a different product here. And that's was most or a different template, mostly because I wanted to point out that in this template, if I was to load a different image up, I would get a different map here depending on what country it is, because I'm reading the metadata. And you'll notice that it automatically put a dot over there based off the location of this image within that map. So I'm over, this is in Bournemouth, UK. Okay, so right down here on the coast. So again, I can create a product. I can do grid reference graphics. I can put a whole bunch of different graphics on here. And I have two choices here. Again, in Socket GXP, I can do GeoPDFs. I can do 3D GeoPDFs. There is some limitations with the 3D GeoPDF, so it doesn't really like the template around it and so on. So for here, I'm going to do a regular GeoPDF. I'm going to click on that. It's going to ask me to save it. I can hit save, and you can see that it kind of briefly flashed. The image is gone. Now the image is coming back. Of course, it popped up on my other screen, so let me bring it over here. Okay, so here's the GeoPDF that was just generated. You can see I've got my graphics, but here coming from Socket GXP, we break out the different components into different layers so that we can actually turn them off. I can turn all the graphics off and see just the image, and you can see down at the bottom, I'm getting my coordinates and everything. I can do measurements and whatnot. If I can see, there's the annotations, there was the template that was applied. So it's a little bit more robust, I think, of a product coming out of Socket GXP than coming out of WebView. Now, we hope in the future to incorporate some of this capability into the WebView product as well. One other thing I'll point out, right now in this particular version of Socket GXP, I already had an ortho projected image in here. And so there wasn't much to see, but normally we would ortho rectify that image on the fly before generating the GeoPDF. But again, going back to some customer requirements, there's some customers that did not want the image to be ortho rectified. They wanted to keep it in its raw kind of native projection. And so in the next release of Socket GXP, we're going to have that capability. Initially, it'll be a thing where you'll have to set it up through a configuration file, but eventually we hope to have it just as a simple checkbox. You can say, do we want your GeoPDFs to be ortho rectified, or do you want the image to be in its native projection? So, okay, so I'm going to close this multi-port, and I'm going to talk a little bit about generating 3D GeoPDFs. So I've got this other multi-port. We're still in England, just a little bit further east. We're now in Southampton, England. And this is a data set I have that has a lot of pictometry imagery in it. If you're not familiar with pictometry, they make an aerial camera system that can collect very high resolution images. But not only is it the images collected kind of through normal kind of looking so that you can do typical stereo stuff, but they also do highly oblique images, which is great when you're doing 3D feature extraction. So I had taken the images. Right now we're just looking at an ortho image that I generated from some of the pictometry data. But then I did some 3D feature extraction in it. This was all done in Socket GXP. These are volumetric features, which means these buildings have the walls and everything extracted from them. And you see, I'm going to go and open up a special multi-port within Socket GXP called the 3D multi-port, and turn it to my camera here. I can start flipping this on its side. And because I had the oblique images, I was able to texture those buildings as I extracted them to make a very realistic looking scene. So just to show you now, I can generate from this 3D multiport directly a 3D GeoPDF. Notice that this 3D multiport only can export the 3D ones. Well, technically you should be able to export it at whatever angle you're looking at, since it's not supposed to matter. One thing you do need to be cognizant of is we only create the product from what is visible in the multiport right now. So if we were to generate this product right here now, the 3D GeoPDF, we're going to be a little bit limited. And so I typically, if I'm generating them, I like to, go to a more nadir kind of look so I can position it better, make sure I get all of the features and stuff in here that I want to make sure I can export, and then hit the button. I'm not going to do that because these 3D GeoPDFs take a little bit longer to render, and you don't want to, I'm sure everybody here does not want to see, just a status bar slowly move. So I had already pre-generated the product. I did not apply, like I said, any template or anything in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. But as you can see, we've exported all of the features and everything that were extracted into this 3D GeoPDF.
How big is that file, Brian? Pretty
This
large.
actually, because it was made out of vectors, it's actually not that big. I can look this up real quick.
There's so much elevation data that's lying around on cabinets and closets, and trying to figure out a way to deliver this to a standard user, somebody who can get a little bit more situational awareness of an area, is kind of the way that I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, so this file is actually small. It's only a little over 2 megabytes. As I'm looking at it here. And that's mostly because I used a very low resolution terrain model in here, because I didn't really need a higher resolution when where we are here in England is relatively flat. And again, it's going to depend, I think, a lot on what type of product you're generating. I have a, we saw it earlier, that GeoPDF with the Bournemouth terrain model in there that I had the terrain shaded relief. I actually turned that into a 3D GeoPDF, which is what I'm showing here. Now this one is about just shy of 23 megabytes. But I cheated a little bit in generating it. The post spacing of this terrain model is only 14 centimeter. Okay, so it's a very, very dense terrain model, and the file size was becoming huge. So I generated the terrain shaded relief image from that high resolution terrain model. And then I created a second terrain model where I downsampled it, I believe, to 1/2 meter, which is still good enough for the 3D GeoPDF. You can see it struggles a little bit when I try to rotate it because just of the sheer number of posts that are in that terrain model. But you can see, I mean, you can get a really good idea. You can see where the trees are, where these buildings are. In some ways, if you have the data to make a terrain model like this, and this is not LiDAR, this is actually, derived from imagery, this can be a faster process than going through and trying to extract all of those features and whatnot. Or it's a little more hands off. I can go and let the terrain model generate overnight, come back in the next morning and generate this, whereas opposed to if I'm doing and trying to extract all these buildings by hand, that's a butt in the seat kind of doing all of this. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I can take any questions now that people might have.
I haven't seen anything pop in, but please, everyone, if you hopped in a little bit late, if you have any questions about the abilities that Brian was presenting, either from Explorer, WebView, or GXP itself, feel free to go ahead and use that Q&A section down at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try to monitor those. Again, we want this to be as interactive as possible, so ask questions, and definitely want to say thanks to Brian and the team at BAE for giving us this presentation. They also have a great event that you will see on my following slides, the GXP 360 event. So if you are in the remote sensing side of the geospatial community, it's a great event to attend out in California, great networking opportunities, and obviously a ton of educational opportunities at that event as well.
Thank you, Scott, for plugging that. That was my oversight. I should have been the one plugging that
No
conference.
worries. I've been there for a decade, Brian. I always try to get people to come in, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, so
okay,
somebody else can stop in there.
for sure. And if we go back to the agenda here, let me go ahead and share my screen. We were going to go ahead and have, let's see here. Let me get my screen. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Brian. So we're just about on time, actually, so everything is good there. I'm going to just give a quick presentation on what we've been up to for the past few months, past year. Again, I'm Scott Lee with Tergo. Been around the community writ large, the geospatial and GeoInt community, since about '93. So coming pretty hard at 30 years. Ooh, tells me how old I am. But here's the agenda again. What I wanted to do is just give you an idea of what we have been up to for the past year. Now that the pandemic is hypothetically concluded, but no telling what's going to happen in the coming months either. We have been back at events. Esri Federal Conference is always a great opportunity for us to meet with this community, the federal space and the federal community, to talk about what their requirements are. So Esri Federal, and we'll be attending again next year, of course. Geo Week covers that. It follows that within a month, I believe, out in Denver. This past year, we did attend the Defense Geospatial Intelligence Summit that's held in London. I'm not sure if we're going to actually be attending that this year, but it does give us a good opportunity to speak with a lot of our international clients that traditionally wouldn't be able to come over to the States. But results from that event are always great for us to speak with the international community, as is the GXP 360 event that's in California. A large international contingent. It's a great opportunity to understand what people are doing with with technology in the space from the intelligence perspective. But as we all know, geospatial is just growing immensely year over year, and more people are finding out the benefits. We do a lot of work with the U.S. Army. So there is an engineering working group that takes place annually in Missouri that we've been invited to attend for a number of years. I mentioned GXP 360 in California. The GeoEnt event is a great opportunity there. I don't know exactly how many attendees they had this past year, but it was, I want to say, over 4,000 people. And then we're all familiar with the Esri International UC. So we attended that again last year as business and technology partners with Esri. There's also a 3D event that took place at the NGA campus East in Springfield a couple of months ago. Great opportunity to see what people are doing in the bathymetric space, mapping our ocean floor. A number of different sensors are available throughout the federal government, their own research and development efforts. We are members with USGIF, so the working groups that they put on monthly for a number of different customers. So we continue to participate in those so we can understand what those requirements are in industry. We do have webinars. We put on a handful of webinars and training events this year. Everybody's on this list, so you should be, or on my list, customer list. So you should be getting informed of all of those events as well. And at any time, if you are a user of the product out of Socket GXP or out of Esri, or we have a couple of other products that plug into the Adobe Acrobat environment as well. And we have a plugin or a standalone capability to just transform raster data into GeoPDF as well. So free training is available for your organization. Just don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and we can get something lined up for your office or the entire organization. We've been doing that with a number of our larger customers for years, so just let us know. Let's see, next, the product update. So we have done multiple releases of software over the past year. Our current version for Publisher for ArcGIS Pro is where the majority of the lion's share of our efforts are from an engineering perspective right now. As you can imagine, Esri does regular updates, so we have to do regular updates. We're doing some back office engineering work as well to modernize some of the technology, and that is just about complete. It's a major GDAL transformation that is ongoing inside of Terrago. Publisher for ArcGIS, the desktop product, and the ArcGIS server environment. We haven't done a release in a few months. Like I said, the majority of our efforts are on that back office transformation as well as the capabilities in ArcGIS Pro. The lion's share of our new customers or existing customers are making that transition to Pro. I think that our support is supposed to stop for the standard ArcGIS desktop product from Esri. I believe it's 2025. So transformation is coming. If you haven't made the transformation, obviously I encourage you to start going through that process. We're trying to port as much of the capability in our traditional legacy desktop Publisher for ArcGIS tool into the ArcGIS Pro environment. And that was a complete rewrite. I don't know if I mentioned this last year. That was a complete rewrite of our code. So it was a long effort, and we're still continuing to enhance those capabilities. Composer, the product that plugs into the Adobe Acrobat environment and our GeoPDF toolbar. We have made the 64-bit version available. That transition, we do have metrics. People, obviously, you can go to our website and download software, evaluation software, and the free GeoPDF toolbar. The lion's share of those downloads are now transitioning over to 64-bit as opposed to 32. So you'll notice I'm going to show a sample of our GeoPDF product that was created, and I'm going to try to keep the same theme and go in the UK. So I'll show you a sample of London, a map book, but you'll see a difference in the environment that Brian was working in from the Adobe Reader environment to the environment that I have. So Adobe's made a lot of changes as well in their systems. It takes our federal government customers and DoD customers a little bit of time to make that transition across an enterprise, but we are fully aware and supporting the 64-bit version of our free toolbar and the Adobe Acrobat environment as well. Our SDK is and raster product are what BAE Systems uses inside of their tool set. We're continually getting enhancement requests for that. So we do have a branch to where the guys and team work on SDK and helping with enhancements to socket. And our publisher for raster, we just did a release last month. So there's a batch conversion. So if you have a library imagery, for example, and you want to do a conversion of all of that image library into something that's consumable for the end user, we have that tool set there available as well. We did have a couple of licensing issues that were encountered, but we got those resolved in that raster product as well here recently. So here is the latest version number, or the latest version numbers. If you want to take a screenshot, this session is being recorded, so we'll make this recording available for everyone that registered for this event as well. Let's see. So Terrago in the news, what has happened recently? So the Library of Congress, which is probably one of the more proud moments that I've had inside of this organization, I've been here for about 17 years, is that the Library of Congress actually selected the Terrago website to be included in the Geospatial Software and File Formats Web Archive. If you can see that, it's a larger collection of historically and culturally significant websites that have been designated for preservation. So quite an accomplishment, I think, for the team, not just currently, but there are a lot of people that were involved in building this technology out and helping make it available to the general public. So that's quite an accomplishment for that entire team, going all the way back to 2005 when Terrago was founded. We have embarked on a couple of other partnerships working with small sat organizations to see about being able to get data processed as close to the sensor as possible. So if it is a number of different companies, we all know how many satellite organizations there are and how much data there is available. We're working with a few of those organizations to try to see if we can process the data actually on the bird itself. What does that mean? This GeoTIFFs, NITF data, IMGs, whatever the data format might be, they're all traditionally extremely large. And if we can get that data processed to a GeoPDF, smaller file size, faster to get to the ground, and quicker to interpret. Not necessarily analyze, but to interpret. Everyone seems to be an imagery analyst of some sort, just because of the advent of Google Earth, everybody can recognize their house. So I think they're an analyst, not necessarily work like that, but people on the ground need access to the data as soon as possible. So that's what we're working on there, and in a ubiquitous format, the PDF itself. So we have made some major leaps in the smart cities and utilities business. If you are unaware, Terrago itself has two organizations underneath. There's the GeoPDF business, and then there's the IoT, smart cities and utilities side of the business. We've recently signed some rather large agreements with large utilities here domestically, but also internationally. You'll see that on the next slide. 8 of the 10 largest U.S. utilities now use our technology to manage their assets in the field. Utilities, we do a lot of things around streetlights to manage the entire supply chain, from the inventory of a smart IoT device in a warehouse to actually sending that content or sending that asset out into the field to be commissioned, and then also maintenance and inventory and analytics, all kinds of separate functions in the supply chain are managed using our technology. So again, millions of assets. I think there's 6 million smart streetlights under management right now. We were just awarded our 5th Smart 50 award with Exelon and Baltimore Gas and Electric. And I really encourage you, if you have assets in the field and need to be able to maintain those assets, do maintenance on those assets, think of it from a facilities management standpoint. Feel free to get in touch with us about that as well. It doesn't just work inside or just with the GIS. There are other types of back office systems that we connect to as well, from work order management, asset management, customer relationship management software, all kinds of different other functions, not just location based, but again, all those other functions inside of the supply chain. This is my CEO, Dave Basil, receiving our Smart Streetlight Deployment Energy and Environment Award for the work that we did with the City of Chicago. It's a very interesting case study if you'd like to hit the website and have a look there. Again, interaction and opportunities. I try to keep the same theme here. Tergo is hiring. We have released a couple of nice use cases for GGI, which is down in Louisiana, that are doing emergency response, and also an educational organization, Matrix Design Group. They were having problems delivering their data. An interesting agricultural application from Ross County, Ohio. And these are all available on the website, as well as the Northwest Territories. There's some fantastic products they're producing out of the ArcGIS environment. It's feature rich, extremely feature rich, but extremely large as well. So wanted to be able to make their mineral and petroleum resources data available to the general public. And so it's been a great method for them to be able to deliver that content. Talk to you just briefly about the Composer product. A lot of people are already familiar with the work that we do out of ArcGIS. These are all linked. All of these files in this index map here are linked together automatically. After a user creates multiple map sheets, each one of these rectangles represents a map sheet that was exported out of ArcGIS Pro using data-driven pages, or not data-driven pages. It's map series is what it's called now. So one of our technical resources did this batch export of all these individual map sheets. The problem is that everything always happens in the corner of a map, right? So each one of these map sheets is automatically linked together. Your user doesn't have to go in and actually place hyperlinks on this. They're automatically created. So if I select one of these, I hope you can see my cursor changing, and go to that H map sheet. And you'll see here, now we have imagery and all of the vector content as well. So if I wanted to turn off the imagery, these are some of the examples of what you could do out of Socket as well. So with all of that extra information, now you have a layered GeoPDF product. And you know, it's not one size fits all. Everybody wants a different looking map sheet. So they, instead of having to create 10 different maps of one specific area, you create one map and then deliver it, disseminate it to everyone. Inside of this data, obviously we have the compatibility with the GeoPDF toolbar here. So again, things always happen in the corner of a map. So as I move over, I hope you can see, I'm actually jumping over to the next adjacent map sheet to the east. So now it has moved me over to the next sheet to the east. Likewise, I can go to the corners and navigate directly. And all of these hyperlinks are done automatically again. So it's not something that you have to do manually. can save a tremendous amount of time. All works with the toolbar, of course, so I can take my measurements directly here on this product. Linear features, area features. You'll notice that at the bottom, I do have multiple coordinates as well. I'm not sure if we have international people on the line here, but I can change this. Everybody doesn't work in longitude and latitude or a military grid reference system, so I can change it to a local projection if needed. Can also use the identify tool. This is where we leverage a technology that we worked with the U.S. Army, specifically the Army Geospatial Center, to, instead of just delivering the data or a picture of the data, we're also delivering the attribute information associated to that. And the way that that is actually performed is through what's called a geo package. So now I actually have not just a representation of this data. So when I select on an individual item, yes, I can be rendered that individual feature, but I also have all of the data. So I'm actually going to save this locally, 25189, to my desktop and show you what that data actually looks like. Desktop. 251. Here is that geo package that I saved locally. Okay, so if I double click, let me open up my browser here. This is just a SQLite browser. This is all, that geo package is actually just a SQLite database, but it actually holds all of the content. So now all of the content that is inside of that existing GeoPDF is here. And this geo package itself can be opened directly back up inside ArcGIS Pro, inside of Socket GXP, inside of ArcGIS Desktop, anything that can handle a geo package, which is an OGC. I don't know if it's a best practice, but it is an OGC specification, just for your information. We're trying to make sure that we work within specifications and standards as much as possible so that everything is interoperable. This GeoPDF obviously is ISO 32000 compliant. And so any PDF reader can open it. Our toolbar only works inside of the Adobe Reader environment. What I wanted to do, though, is show you, if you're unfamiliar, you can actually add your own content directly on the GeoPDF here. And so this is where we want the end user to be able to do something more with the data. I'm just going to close this up. Sorry. So here I have my polygon. I can add attributes to that as well if I wanted to. But what I want to do, I'm going to just name this as GeoPDF WG demonstration. Here is information about the person who actually created the content. We do have a small forms capability to collect structured data. We also have, you can add attachments, but it's all spatial. So you have the geometry associated here. So I'm going to export this, and I can export that data as KML or as a shapefile. And this is a wrapper. I'm just going to save this as the GeoPDF WG _ demo to my desktop. And it's asking me what I want to export. I can export just the geomarks that I created or all annotations. Select OK. and then open up my desktop again here. And here's the KML I just created. And it's over a train station, I believe. Yep. And Google Earth is launching on my other screen. Here you go. So now it should navigate me directly to that train station. So it's this whole premise of spatial collaboration, being able to collect data, the end user be able to collect data in the field in a disconnected environment, and then save that content and send it back to an analyst so that they can create a more accurate map. Obviously, is the simple story there. With that, if there are any questions, I ran a little bit short, but just wanted to be concise here. If you have any questions, please let us know. Ted, I don't know if you're ready 15 minutes early. Can I get your audio?
Scott?
Yeah.
Scott, I see a couple of questions in the Q&A section there you might want to look at.
Yep, you got it. Hey, Ted, can I get an audio check from you, please?
That better?
Yep, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay.
As far as going through the process, Teddy, going through the process to create the map series, to generate the hyperlinks, we can do that. I'll be happy to get in touch with you. That is actually our next webcast, is going to be on our Composer product. We haven't identified a date just yet, but it will probably be early November. And I'll be able to give you a demonstration. Well, you can participate in the demonstration with the group, or if you want to get in touch with me directly, we'll be able to go ahead and go through that with you and your organization. If that sounds okay. And then Rob, you don't have a requirement for 3D. It's just curious. Well, 3D modeling works with FMV. Brian, can you talk just briefly as Ted's getting ready? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. About the ability to create 3D models using FMV.
So yeah, so I kind of answered it in chat a little bit, but right now we don't have that capability to like go directly from FMV to 3D models in Socket GXP. It's something we've looked at. There just has not been a high enough requirement for it compared to the other stuff that we needed to add in.
Mm-hmm.
But right now there are some applications out there that can do a process called structure from motion, and that can use just it's kind of an automatic process where they're trying to develop and produce 3D models from the FMV as the sensor kind of goes around or orbits a particular target, that they can build those things up. And right now, as long as they can output those 3D models into a file format that we can ingest, so like Collada or SketchUp or KML, Esri, whatever like that, we can bring them in and then generate the 3D GeoPDFs and stuff from those. But we can't do it directly from FMV currently.
Is there a specific model type that you guys prefer, Brian, to be able to ingest, or something that would be, just for my own edification, I guess, a standard or a model type that is more pervasive in the industry than others?
No, not when you get into the 3D stuff where you want the sides of the buildings and everything. That's one of the harder parts. If you want something that's a little bit more universal in there, Collada is probably the best, especially if it's geo-referenced. You know, that's something that's universal. We work best, obviously, with our own socket GXP feature databases, but you know, they're proprietary to us. If you want something, like I said, that's universal, Collada or SketchUp is probably your best. I'm not sure. I'm not an Esri person, how well they handle the 3D volumetric features where you've got the sides of the buildings and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks. Mr. Florence,
Yes.
the floor
How you
is
doing?
yours, sir.
How's everybody? Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
You got me? You can hear me? All right.
Yep.
Good. Good. Just 1 minute. Let me get ready here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Thank you, Scott, and the team at Terrago, and for putting this all together. Happy to see Ray's with us on the line today. Good morning, Ray. Anyway, I'm back at it. I missed last year's meeting due to illness, but I'm back at it now, and I'm here to bring you up to date on all the things that Avenza is doing and has been doing and continues to do to support geospatial PDFs as a widespread platform for using maps and you know, getting locational awareness regardless of what you're doing. So you know, we've been doing this for a long time. You'll see here a little bit of our history here. And I do this because not everybody knows about events and not everybody knows who we are. And there might be people new to this group from new to this meeting from previous years. So, you know, we got our start a long time ago in producing maps and enabling people to produce maps for all kinds of purposes, not just in government, but in the commercial realm as well. And throughout the years, the creation and publishing of maps evolved into geospatial PDFs as a platform. That's why we're all here. And going back, you know, almost 15 years, we came up with a method back in 2009 for actually creating geospatial PDFs in the Adobe environment in support of our map publisher product, which at the time was, you know, arguably the very widely used, you know, choice for producing high quality maps in Adobe for print and for web. And obviously supporting PDF, geospatial PDF, when that format emerged, was an important thing for us to do. So we did. And as far as we know, we're still the only way to create geospatial PDFs out of Adobe's ecosystem, whether that be Photoshop or whether that be Illustrator. Even Adobe doesn't have tools for creating geospatial documents inside their own suite. So that's what we do. That continued into our mobile platform. We realized that, you know, the P in PDF stands for portable, and we need to find a way to make these maps truly portable. And as cell phones and tablets started to become very popular, we wanted to make sure that we had a way of enabling people to use those geospatial PDFs in the field. And that was Avenza Maps. Then we realized that people will want to get these PDFs. And it's not just about all of our business and government workers delivering maps to their own personnel for internal use. But what about the public? How do we enable the public to get access to these maps, whether it's for emergency response awareness during an evacuation, whether it's some other event like that, or whether it's just for personal recreation to get access to the latest national parks map or Forest Service map for their weekend adventure. So we created the Avenza Map Store, which is now a catalog of well over 1 million maps, most of which originate as geospatial PDF files that are now cataloged, organized, and available for discovery and use inside our mobile platform. We've continued to innovate and add features to our platform, such as some of the things I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but multi-page PDFs, vector-based maps, our cloud offering for private storage and deployment of maps. And as we move into the future, we are going to be enhancing our enterprise initiatives to give our corporations, our government entities, more power with what they do in geospatial PDF, especially on the mobile platform, but also through management of assets in the field using the PDF, through web portals, and various other things like that. And then we are also working on ways of incorporating machine learning and artificial intelligence into the whole process of working with and using geospatial PDFs. And throughout this whole process, we continue to work with strategic partners in data provision, data collection, in software and other technologies, in communication technologies, and all the things that make this all part of a very powerful and widespread ecosystem. So in general, you know, I talk about how we're changing the way, or we're empowering the way geospatial PDFs are used and all that. And what I really want to stress is that we're trying to bring all facets of map use together in a viable platform, which we consider geospatial PDF to be. And it's not just about professionals, whether they're in government or business, commerce, but it's also more about providing a safe, reliable, structured, and maintained environment for everyone to use maps, gain locational awareness, create and share data, and to have the best experience even at a consumer level, and to use something that is as simple and easy to use and uncomplicated as possible. And that's where we really focus on a ecosystem like this, where we talk about everything from data manipulation analysis, cartographic design, and imagery manipulation and work, storage and distribution, utilization and data collection, all through desktop, mobile, GPS, cloud services, and all of that stuff in a very simple and uncomplicated process for all people, whether they're authors of data and production products like maps and imagery, authors, managers of data, managers of teams, decision makers, people using these outputs to make decisions, or whether they're just users, and to make it as uncomplicated and simple as possible. Simple to make the products, simple to load the products, simple to find the products, simple to store, distribute, and deploy these products, and simple to use. And not everyone is a geoscientist. Not everyone knows all the ins and outs of their mobile device or their software. And really, a hydro worker or a firefighter or an emergency response person just needs to get a good map that's going to show their location, give them the capabilities of seeing their location, using it, and they don't want to be complicated or overcomplicated by processes and difficulties. And that's why our mobile app is so popular. That's why geospatial PDF as a platform is desirable. And that's where we're focusing all our attention to put this all together. So the solutions that we have currently that support geospatial PDF are as follows. We have these 5 basic product lines. Geographic Imager is our plugin for Adobe Photoshop. Geospatial PDF creation in Adobe Photoshop. Being able to take the imagery from satellites, drones, aircraft, scans, and making those into geospatial PDFs using Photoshop's tools with other tools that we provide, including mosaicing, tiling, various things like that, and ultimately to output them to geospatial PDF. Map Publisher is the vector side inside Adobe Illustrator, making PDFs in the Adobe platform, making them simply with graphic design tools that speak geography, that read and write geospatial formats, including our important high-level ones like GeoPackage and things like that. We have live database connections now to things like OSM and other vector base map products where we can create geospatial PDFs almost instantly. We have direct publishing tools to the cloud environment where these maps can be stored and distributed to end users using our mobile platform to make them easy to find. Our Avenza Maps product is the mobile product, which hopefully a lot of you are aware of. Many of you in government will be aware of it already, and that's how you use these products out in the field. Our Map Store is our commercial distribution channel for publishers on the commercial side, for governments, even for corporations, to store their geospatial PDFs, to make them discoverable and visible to their end user constituents, to sell them if they want to charge for them, and to distribute them and make sure that they get into the hands of those people. And our enterprise offering, which is relatively new but starting to grow, is where we're adding enhanced capabilities for large enterprises, not just governments, but also businesses and things like that. And one of the things which we've come out recently, which is proven very popular and is growing like beyond our expectations, is kind of like a private map store. If you look at the green picture there, it's the Avenza Map Store. That's the commercial side. That's where the Forest Service puts all its maps, and the National Park Service puts all its maps, so that people going out on the weekends can find them. But businesses need that capability too. Where does an oil company, where does a mining company, where does the government, in any branch of the government, where do they put all their maps in a safe, reliable, easy to use, easy to find, easy to connect environment, so that the people that want those, need those products, whether they work for that oil company or they work for the government, to find them and get them in a convenient way that can load directly into a mobile platform without a lot of fooling around. Where do they put them? And that's what we offer now. It's kind of like a like an iCloud or Google Drive environment, but for maps, geospatial PDFs, that is completely organized, cataloged, and set up to plug in directly to our mobile platform so that people can easily discover and download and start using those maps. As I talked about Geographic Imager, it's our Photoshop product. And when you're working with imagery, and at the end of that process, you want to get that imagery out to, say, a mobile device, how do you do that? Well, you do it here. And some of the people that use this product are people like National Geographic, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, Planet, who obviously produces a lot of that data, but they also use our products, the UK Ministry of Defense. And they can easily compile, manipulate, edit, massage, enhance imagery of all types, and then quickly push them out to geospatial PDFs onto mobile devices. Similarly, as I said earlier, on the vector side, we have our map publisher product still, which is used by large organizations, including National Geographic, again, the NGA, CIA, the UK MOD, and many, many more, to bring in vector data. They can even compile it and add to it with some of the raster data from Photoshop or other platforms, make those maps finished in Adobe Illustrator, and then instantly publish them straight out of Illustrator up to a storage platform on the cloud for access to mobile devices, and for people in the field to easily discover and use. And that brings us to the Avenza Maps mobile platform, which is now arguably the most widely used app in the field for firefighting, search and rescue, emergency response. It's used by large government agencies all over the country, all over the continent, all over the world, in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. People like the Forest Service, the Department of the Interior, large corporations like Weyerhaeuser, California Fire, LA County, and EMCINA, which is the major emergency response group in Australia. And they use this application to discover, distribute, sometimes sell, like a National Geographic would do, and use maps digitally on mobile devices. And really, all you need to get your map into a application like this is it just has to be a geospatial PDF. It could be other things. It could be geotips as well, but this is a PDF group, so we'll talk about that. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, the map is only good if you can get it to the people who need to use it. And then they have to have the tool to use it. And this is the environment that we support geospatial PDFs with, and that we encourage people to consider geospatial PDFs for use in a platform like this. And it's really taken off. And the screen you see in front of you on the app is on the consumer side for discovering. And if you work for the Forest Service or you work for the National Park Service, this might be one way that you would make your content available. And then people would be able to discover it and find it just like they find music or books or other content. So that map store I talked about does have now over 1 million maps. It's arguably the largest catalog of digital maps anywhere in the world outside the Library of Congress. There are thousands of publishers, there's millions of maps. It's a complete iTunes-like e-commerce system that allows publishers to monetize their content as geospatial PDFs directly to end users. And there are hundreds of thousands of maps transacted monthly. And anybody, whether they're doing maps for free or whether they're doing maps for commerce, should be considering this as a very easy to use platform to get those maps out to the people who need them. And then, of course, that takes us now to our enterprise offering. The Avenza Cloud platform, which I touch a little bit about earlier, is kind of like this map store environment I talked about, but it's closed, it's private. We did something similar to this earlier, a few years ago, for the NGA. There are approximately 40,000 individual pieces of content, maps, and imagery that the NGA has put into this behind a wall that can only be accessed by certain versions of our mobile application. And that's now expanded into this environment where we are allowing enterprise groups like businesses, like governments, and government departments to store their maps on a cloud system that's dedicated to them, but that plugs directly into our application that is separate from the public-facing map store, so that you now have a place on the cloud where you can safely push your geospatial PDF products to and have them easily cataloged, discovered, and then ultimately downloaded and used on mobile in the mobile app for users in the field. And those would only be discoverable by people who know they exist or know that storage location exists. So it's secure, it's private, and it's easy. And that's really what it comes down to, is that you have to make it in such a way that the people in the field who need access to this content are not struggling to find it. They're not struggling to use it, and empowering them with simplicity is empowering them with greatness and great capabilities. So this cloud storage is these private silos of geospatial PDF maps and imagery products, and ultimately other data formats as well, in a two-way street, linked directly to the Avenza Maps app. As we go forward, we're allowing people to manage their users' data. We're going to allow these to be a two-way platform for data, so that users in the field will be able to upload data back to these private silos, so that people back at the office can access to them. They can share them with other users that way. And we're giving other forms of access to manage devices and the subscriptions that people have, and various things like that. Over the last year, we've done quite a bit to keep this platform moving forward and to continue to support geospatial PDF initiatives. We've strengthened our desktop products by bringing vector base map capabilities to Map Publisher. We've also have the capability to publish directly to these cloud silos, so there's no saving, uploading later. You can publish directly from the Adobe environment to your own, to the map store or to your own system on the map store where you can put your maps without having to save them again and upload them again and log in again and all that kind of stuff. We've added vector base map capability now to Avenza Maps. So when you don't have a map, you can still get a map. You can still use vector base maps from base map servers now. We've added geopackage support in a big way. We now have elevation support. We have multi-page PDF support. So now you can upload map books or multi-page PDF documents. They can work seamlessly together. Similarly to what Scott showed earlier in the Tergo product, where you can go from one PDF to the next automatically. That now will work much easier now if you upload multi-page PDFs from a map book where one goes to the next. We have this private connected map storage capability, which I talked about earlier. And we've expanded our QR code program, which is really taking off in a big way. And that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides. But basically, it's a simple way of getting maps to people without them having to find them, without them having to search for them, without having to type long URLs to get to them. It's a simple scan and go process of a QR code. I'll show you that in a moment. And the company has continued to expand. Over the few years of COVID, we've basically doubled our headcount, and we've invested heavily in the different product development teams that we need to support all these initiatives. And we're continuing to thrive in all of this as a result. So let me talk to you about this QR code initiative. Some of you may have seen it. You may have seen this in your local national park. You may have seen it on other map documents or things like that, but it's a very easy way that's supported directly by the app, where you can scan a QR code and that map immediately then ends up in the Avenza Maps application. Just like on this sign that you see on the right hand in that photo, that's from a national park somewhere. That might be from a park up here. That's from the Toronto Conservation Authority. So that QR code is on a sign at one of the parks up here in the Toronto area. You will find them also on state parks and national parks throughout the United States and parts of Europe and Australia. And they can also be used in government and in corporations to make it very easy for end users to get the map they need. So imagine on an incident site where 1,000 firefighters are showing up, and the authoring team, the GIS team that's putting together the map products, all they have to do is throw a QR code up on a sign, and the firefighters scan that code and immediately get the map. That map is then immediately ingested into the mobile application Avenza Maps, and then can be used offline out in the field while they do their work. And we're pushing this in a big way, not just in government, not just in commerce, but also in recreation, because it's very important to make it easy. As I said earlier, simplicity is king here. We don't want to overburden ourselves with technology that we become cumbersome. We want to make it easy for people to create the content, to access the content, and to use the content. And these are some of the key groups right now, just a few that we threw on this slide that are using one or more of these solutions in authoring or deploying or using geospatial PDFs, or at least using the Adobe platform to create their maps. You'll recognize probably almost all of these names. And some of them, like the National Geographic, for example, will use the Adobe products to produce their content. They'll produce geospatial PDFs. They'll then upload those PDFs to our cloud system, then use the map store as a vehicle to sell and monetize those products. Groups like the Forest Service have also the desktop authoring products to create maps, both for print and for electronic delivery using geospatial PDF. They have, tens of thousands of users in the field using the mobile product. They use the map store backend to make those maps available to the public. They also use it to make those maps available to their own groups for when they do have incidents. In fact, one of the things we were dealing with last week was a law enforcement issue at one of the national parks. That was with the National Park Service, but they had an issue, and we were asked to help them with that using the geospatial PDF technologies that we have. And partners as well. I mentioned the Forest Service because they're a big partner in a number of ways. So is the Department of Interior, obviously Adobe, because much of what we do, especially on the authoring side, relies on Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. So they're a very big partner of ours. Obviously, the whole PDF thing itself relies heavily on Adobe. Toronto Conservation Authority, as I mentioned earlier, they've put these signs up all over the place with the QR codes all over the parks, but there are many others. We work with technology providers like Trimble to support their devices. So we're not just talking about using the minimal capabilities of the GPS inside your cell phone, but we also want to be able to get higher precision GPS accuracy when needed, when required, by introducing capabilities in partnership with people like Trimble or like Garmin, for example. As I mentioned, Garmin we work with Garmin in a number of ways. We support their third-party GPS devices as they connect to our mobile platform. We provide them with tools to create a lot of the maps they produce. And they also use our map store backend to distribute some of their non-database content. There's their atlases, and they use PDF for that. There's a lot going on here with all of these corporations that relies on PDF as a platform. And then you see what 3 words in the corner there. These guys, if you don't know, are people that have turned the familiar lat long military grid, WGS 84, all that stuff into a 3-word scenario for location. And we actually support them as well by using what 3-word addresses as a possibility in our app. And we do support quite a number of different location display formats, and what 3 words is just one of them. So, that's really everything that we've been doing now and in the past, and some ideas we have and plans we have for going forward. A couple of things I didn't mention was that we're starting to work more and more closely with satellite providers now. It's really important for people in the field to get access to fresh live data, or as fresh and live as it can be, and often satellite data is the best way to do that. So we are working with satellite providers now to provide satellite raster-based maps into the Avenza Maps product. But the bottom line here really is that we continue to innovate and support the geospatial initiative from the bottom to the top, from the data collection all the way through production, all the way through to distribution and use. And that we try to do it, we want to do it in a simple and easy method and an ecosystem, so that it does not become a victim of its own success. And the more that you want to do with things, often you find that they become more and more difficult to use. And we recognize actually that Adobe PDF in the first place has become so widely used for everything from airline tickets to maps because it's easy. If my mother can figure it out, then anybody can. And that's what we need to be able to do to continue to make geospatial PDF in map use and imagery use, is we need to make it easy enough that anybody can use it. Because not everybody is a geoscientist or techie or as experienced and knowledgeable as we are. And those that are experts in their fields whether it's, hydro, whether it's search and rescue, whether it's firefighting, may not be as adept at their mobile device and the apps on their device as others. And the last thing we want to do is to create an environment that becomes so difficult that people don't want to use it. And that's really everything I have to say today. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Ted, there are a couple of questions that are in the chat
Okay.
about
see.
converting a group of maps into a collection, which was a good feature add.
Yes. Let me see if I can find
I'm
those.
going to read through that.
Okay. Okay, can group it into a collection, which is a great feature. Okay. To always physically show all the maps loaded. Any chance that this feature could be further improved to, let me first explain what that is for those who don't know. To convert a group of maps into a collection. So we have this capability in Avenza Maps to create a folder. And just like you would create a folder on your computer to store documents or anything like that. And the concept of this folder is obviously to keep yourselves organized. You might have all your maps of Europe in one folder, or all your maps of your city in one folder. But beyond that, we have a capability of making that folder a collection, and that changes its behavior. In the folder scenario or the generic folder scenario, they are individual maps that are just together in a folder. When you make them into a collection, they are still individual maps, but they behave in such a way that they work together. So if you move from one map to the next, or you go off a map, for example, as you navigate off one map, it will automatically load the next one. If you zoom in on one map to a point where another map that might be at a different scale becomes more relevant, it will automatically load to give you more better view of that area. So that's how this collection feature works. And it looks to me like what this question is whether or not we would display, I guess, almost in a mosaic, all the maps in the collection together as one in one view. Is that what you mean, Teddy? I don't know if we can hear you. Yes, so that is something that we thought of, and something that we are working on. Oftentimes, maps are at different scales, so there are there's some head scratching to do here and to figure things out. But it is definitely something that that people have asked for and that we're working on. So I guess in a simple way, the answer is yes. And I have seen. And I think we're going to see later from Patrick that North Avenue does something similar to this on the desktop. So we're well aware of this desire, and it is something that we're working on. So what else do we have? Engineering market. Yes. Again, Teddy, yes. So we are working with a lot of firms in engineering, big engineering companies like WSP and AECOM and companies like that do use our products in the engineering market. I'm not sure what you mean by generating horizontal geospatial construction plans. But what I do know is that they are working with our application, both on authoring and on field use. So they do create a lot of their documents, whether they're using AutoCAD or MicroStation or ArcGIS or other things like that to start with. A lot of times they'll publish those directly to PDF and then load them into our mobile app. Some of them have purchased our cloud storage system to archive all their content and make it easier for their field users to find. But yes, on the commercial side, we have gained a lot of traction in engineering, particularly with the large firms, like I said, like AECOM, like WSP, like Arup, if you've heard of them, out of San Francisco and London and Sydney, and groups like that. Anything else?
Looks perfect right now, Ted. Thanks. Really
All
appreciate
right,
it.
thank you, everybody. Glad to
Yeah,
have
you
been here
guys are
again.
busy. You guys are
We
really
are,
busy.
we're very busy.
That's good stuff. Good
Yes.
stuff. Okay, so I had the agenda going until 10:40 for Ted, and look at that, you nailed it. You nailed it. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to come back and have Patrick give us an overview of what he's been up to with North Avenue and the tool sets they're doing and what they're doing as an organization. And we'll have him talk for about 20-25 minutes and then do a quick Q&A. I'm sure Ray Caputo would like to say hello, so we'll get to that too. And just go ahead and pause until 11 o'clock. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in a few.
Scott, I want to thank you for putting this together. And as you mentioned, I've been in this space for a long time. And I think you said 18 to 20 years, and stole a little bit of my thunder because I realized when I was putting this together that it's been just over 20 years. And in fact, this year you can say that that GeoPDF is 20 years old. Correct. It was in 2003 when we created the first one. It was I was working for Latent Graphics and had been hired to productize their software that was CAD to PDF, and they had a unique feature in it where we were laying inside of the PDF hidden text over the stroked out text that was that when you converted a CAD document to PDF, it didn't maintain the text because it didn't have fonts for these fancy architects and stuff. But as part of that CAD to PDF, that allowed you to search text inside of PDF. That was kind of the differentiator. But they had a service project that was, it was almost a GeoPDF, but it wasn't quite. It was because it was CAD to PDF. We weren't really concerned about the geospatial elements of these maps that we were producing for SBC. They had them all stored in their CAD system as AutoCAD and DGN format. So we were doing 1 million maps a year for them as a service, and it was more of a scanning and indexing, and we'd written software to automate that process. And it wasn't until 2003 when Pat Bigger from the NGA challenged us to display, oops, I've got GeoPDF there, but to display geo coordinates. He wanted to see lat long in the, in our little toolbar in Reader. And so we basically embedded just enough information about how the map was made, and we incorporated GeoTrans, which was NGA's normative coordinate conversion tool, and we did just enough information in there so that we could use GeoTrans to go from the map space to the geospace, and that was when the first GeoPDF was born. We took that to an ESRI conference. Tom Terry from the Marines basically said, this technology is going to be on every desktop in the Marines. We thought that was all fine and dandy until we noticed the ESRI guys weren't smiling, and when we came back to Atlanta, we couldn't buy software. So we had to push them to get them to continue to sell us developer license, because effectively they didn't want it in Adobe Reader, they wanted it in Arc Reader at the time. So at least that's what I was told. But that was, that led to us founding Terrago in 2005, and that was all about bringing the software to market. And so that's kind of the abbreviated history of the 20 years. And at Terrago, again, I just was very fortunate to be there and participate in a lot of the innovation that we did around geospatial PDF at the time. So, and people always come back to why GeoPDF. This is, I think Ted was going on this, but it's not your GIS data, but it's a cartographic representation of your data. So it's something you can put in a user's hands. They don't have to, it's readable, it's understandable, and it's a cartographic representation of the data, not the actual data. It's ubiquitous. Everybody has Adobe Reader, or did at the time, and now it's even more ubiquitous, and with all of the browsers showing PDFs and everything else. It's unfortunate that the browser industry hasn't adopted it so that you can actually mouse around a GeoPDF when I open it in Chrome and it just shows a coordinate. It's not that hard, but they probably want you to go to Google Maps instead. Next thing is no network was required. Here you had a autonomous and disconnected workflow that would work in, you could measure distance and direction while in the field, and it was just very simple tools, but it was, again, your map in the hands of users, and then been able to do basic stuff. It's an archival format. You see the U.S. Library of Congress. It just has so many things that come with the PDF, because all of these, organized in GIS layers, you can get feature attributes published in the PDF smart content, and it can also have the other formats, like you have the 3D formats inside of a PDF. And I know Tergo's been doing a lot of work with geo packages in it through the years. But it wasn't until this, everything above this is PDF. It was when it was geo-referenced. Now it enabled it really to be mapping enabled with the PDFs, because before that it was just a document that you couldn't reuse in any fashion. So that's GeoPDF in a nutshell. If y'all been here before, you've heard me probably go through these exact same data points, because it's still compelling because of these issues, even despite the fact when we did this in 2003, MapQuest was king. I mean, it wasn't, you didn't have everybody walking around with a smartphone with all of their maps on it and able to navigate so easily. So a lot has changed with technology, but here we are in our 17th edition of the Geospatial PDF Working Group. So at North Avenue, our primary focus is really about delivering innovative software to our clients. And we do a lot more than just geospatial PDFs, but we worked with the Army Geospatial Center to create Memento, which was with the intent of having a seamless viewer for geospatial PDFs. And so what that meant was we basically did an extension to Adobe Reader, and the standout feature was the ability to automatically decolor and mosaic tiled map sets of GeoPDFs and putting it into a single cohesive view. The one thing about GeoPDFs, when they're properly made, you also, not only do you describe the projection that puts it on paper, much like a GeoTIFF, but you also describe the area of paper that it's in. So a GeoPDF or a geospatial PDF will have a neat line that describes the area of the paper that has a map on it. So we use that to basically, when you're looking at a map set, we all know the problem because Scott was talking to it and Ted was talking to it, and it's like orienting when you go from one map to the other within a map set. And that's just difficult. Even when you have edge hyperlinks, you still, if you're zoomed in on the PDF, you have to reorient, and that's a little bit of, it may not be much of a cognitive burden, but you have to find where you are on the next page when you go over to it, if you're looking at it at one document at a time. So what we did was, in this map set with all of this, we used those neat lines and did the automatic decoloring and brought out the single image to allow you to pan and zoom around on that data. We implemented a few other things that were interesting that I thought were neat. Scale dependent rendering. So a lot of times your mat sets, you may have TLM 50s and TLM 100s, or but just different scale maps. And rather than having the user going over to his layer pane to adjust which scale he wants to look at, we just did it automatically for them for all the PDFs that were in view. And if they were overlapping, we would flip to the one that had the best scale. And it just made it easy to navigate through large data sets. And we did it in a way where we implemented it so we use a map viewer inside of our desktop for actually the navigation. So it's fully extendable with all the capabilities of open layers. We may only show a few things, but we have all that in our viewer. We use Chromium embedded framework, so it so we can deploy web apps in our desktop, much like a browser, only we intercept the calls that are intended to go to our rendering engine. And we made that decision a few years ago to when we realized the limitations of being in Reader, we created a standalone viewer, and that's when we used open layers there. So Memento Server was a product, was a byproduct of that, and it enabled us to create WMS and XYZ tile sets. It's the XYZ tile sets that we use inside of open layers because it basically clips out tiles and sends them to us very efficiently. We did some red line markup experimenting with that, and also because it really is kind of just a little map viewer at that point. We showed what PDFs were in view inside of our main Memento product. And we also, because we have a server product, we've done a few different custom web apps. And I'm going to demo the USGS one in just a second that we did. I thought that would be interesting since we were intending to come to the USGS, but even remotely, I still find these maps fascinating. So let me hop over to the demo. I'll turn because I have to look at my screen. And so here is all that this does here is takes the USGS put all of their historical maps into a GeoPDF data set. They did this several years back, and as soon as I got them, I put them up and tried to host them for a while and built this little web app around it just to show. It was mainly a demo app so we could show the capabilities of what our server does. So right here, when you're zoomed out, it's configurable, but we set a distance where we don't try and render all the little tiles. But as you zoom in, the tiles will start rendering. But also I curated it, and I'm going to show this because I've shown it before, but I think this is one of the most fascinating things about this data set and just having these epochs up here is that as I go through this, you get, and these, I didn't do anything other than separate them by the year they were made, but it tells the story of maps here of how the USGS took their charter to map the resources of the United States and how they prioritize that. So this is everything before 1900, and you can just tell up and down the Appalachians, here in Texas, over here in California. So, and up here, I think there's gold up here in Idaho and such. But and you can just see how over time, if I just do this, it shows you how it fills in just when we mapped the United States. By the time you get here, we have full coverage, but we also have over here in the Philippines maps, and so it's just a super cool little app, if you ask me. And here, I'll get this. I'll zoom into Hawaii here. as you zoom in, it showing the outline of these maps, and eventually it's going to start showing the maps. So that's, you know, by design to hold off a little bit, but at the same time, and if I'm gonna put extra maps on here so you can see over here, I kind of give you an idea of which ones are visible and which ones aren't. And there's a couple here that are the same scale, and it's picking the 1931 instead of the 1932 instead of the 1917 when they overlap. So if as I zoom in, here's where the double is, it'll flip over from one to the other. Maybe it will. Let me put some other maps in here. But because they're different scales. In our main map, you can control layers on the left. I put a little layer pane up here for these, where I didn't do any real curation of this, so there's definitely a little overlap between the two. So 32 and 30. See, where was that? But anyway, that's I could get in here and explore the antique maps all day long, because it's just and you don't have any, you almost hardly notice, except for the different colors, when you're going from map to map. Things that we didn't implement that would be nice to have is, you notice these are flat maps, but it would be nice if we controlled the optional content inside of the maps themselves, so that we could turn layers on and off and such. But I went quick, so I knew there'd be extra time on mine. But if there's any questions, be glad to answer them.
I don't see any in the Q&A pod, Patrick. Thanks. That's always interesting to see.
All right, guys.
So in the chat pod, I did put all the speakers' contact information inside of there. So if you have any questions and you weren't able to scratch that down, everything has been recorded. So we will send a link to the recording to everyone who registered. Chase, you had asked that question specifically. I think I got you the answer after fiddling around in the chat pod or the Q&A pod. Mr. Caputo, are you on the line? Or Mr. Jones?
I am, Scott. I am here, and I would like to let the group know the appreciation I have for Scott and the others for taking the mantle of this year's meeting and running with it. There were personal issues that I had to be involved in that were making it very difficult for me to pull the meeting off at a level that I thought it needed to be at. Scott was able to step in, take over, and get the meeting put together while it gave me time to continue to do what I was responsible for at the office, while also taking the responsibility on the personal side. We sit here today with me being in a much better place personally and professionally because of what Scott was able to do for me there. So I do want to put that appreciation out to him and the others who stepped forward to speak and do what they had to do. So I just wanted to go ahead and say that, and to also say that it is amazing thinking and listening to the folks speaking here today, and hearkening back to the very first meeting that we held back in I'm not even sure if I remember when it was, but that first meeting that we had at the Renaissance Hotel on July 28th, 2010. just happened to pull that out of the hat there, or looked it up on my records here. It just where we were at that point with the burgeoning technology and where we are today, um, is at times night and day, other times revolutionary, other times you can see the evolution of where we were going, and it amazes me as I notice that the light at the end of my government time gets a little brighter each day. Not going anywhere very soon, but I can see that light getting a little brighter every day. It puts a smile on my face to know that the things that we've done over the past, let's see, 2010 to 2023, the last 13 years, has affected so many folks out there. The emails, the comments, the people that I run into or have run into over the years who use the products that we produced, and use them in a way that help them do their jobs better. It just is amazing to me, and being reflective and all melancholy here. I don't want to drag anybody down or put some tears in anyone's eyes, but listening to Patrick give that little blurb of the background, I intimately remember some of those conversations. I have funny stories of Terrago first coming to the office way back when, and just being amazed that we didn't care where the colors came from. We really wanted to get into the nitty gritty and open up the hood. And I remember Michael Buffkin just saying, it's amazing when you talk to people that know what they're talking about. They don't care about the color blue, but they want to know why you did what you did. And just thinking that was 13 years ago, or a little bit more, and where we are today, it just amazes me. So I just wanted to say thank you to Scott and the others for stepping up and doing what they can and did for it. The progression of work that Terrago and Avenza, some of the work that Patrick did while at Terrago, and I know he has horror stories of working with someone as demanding as I was back in the day, getting things done. But you look back at the map assembler tool, and I remember those conversations of telling Patrick just what I thought of the first rendition of that piece of software there. If you ever run into Patrick, he'll probably tell you the sanitized version of that story, or maybe the unsanitized version of that story. But it got done and it's there. But the progression of where we are today, it's just amazing. So thank you to everybody for stepping in and helping me out there, and for those on the line to continue moving forward with the technology, continuing to make products that, as we like to say, the maps for the non-mapper. Not everybody has that giant Jack Dangerman Cathedral on their desk that they get to log into every day. Some people just want to see a map. They want to see a coordinate. They want to zoom down to a point. That's really what they want to see, what they want to do. As Google Maps talked about, millions and millions of users out in the world. And you think of those millions and millions of users, and then to think about how many people actually have the ability to use high-end GIS software. It's negligible, the percentage of people that have that software compared to the people in the world that want to use maps, the billions of them out there. And GeoPDF is filling that void. So thanks again to everybody. Appreciate the ability to speak. And once again, thanks for stepping up, guys, to everybody who was involved and getting this meeting done for me. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. So we are recording. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.